Oh, the coffee tastes horrible, dude.
Well, I had to
What is
purify
this?
the water first.
What do you mean you had to purify the water?
Like, to clean the water out. I used like a 2-liter bottle and like some dirt and sand and like some asphalt gravel.
What are you, a savage? Ugh, call 911. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I wanted to have a discussion on water purification. So it's a topic that most people kind of think they understand, but may not really understand. And I'm not saying that to disparage anybody out there in your knowledge of water filtration. Your knowledge may vastly be superior to mine, but this is my attempt to kind of put this into context for everybody that's going into the outdoors and wants to make sure they have potable water. So first off, when it comes to potable water, I always recommend bringing water with you if you can. So if you can afford to have the weight of water, it's always going to be superior than gathering it in the field. Water weighs somewhere a little bit north of 8 pounds per gallon, so it gets heavy. No lie about that. And if you want to take water in the outdoors, you're going to have to kind of account for that weight or distribute it amongst people if you're going on a trip with other people. So never a bad thing to do. I always like to do both, honestly. I'll usually, at a minimum, have at least 64 ounces of water with me wherever I go, whether that's in 2 Nalgenes, because a Nalgene's 32 ounces, or 32 ounces is like a quart also. And also kind of a liter. They're roughly the same, a little bit of difference, but the premise is that I always want to have water to drink. And that's the most important thing to me. Obviously, you'll need it for cooking if you have certain types of meals. So a consideration when you're outdoors is that you'll want to have water to cook with if your meals are dehydrated. If they're backpacking meals, you're going to need to add water to those to cook versus an MRE that's already ready to eat, hence MRE, meal ready to eat. And then you'll need, water for basic other things too. If you've got a water source nearby, maybe you can wash your hands in that water source and then make sure they're clean when you're done. But for the most part, you really need to consider that on average, you're gonna need a gallon per person per day for sustainment and other things. So that's kind of what I budget when I'm going on a trip. So therefore, I need to know that I'm either taking a gallon per day, which is a lot of freaking water. I mean, if I was going on a 3-day trip, that would be, 24 pounds of water. That's a lot of weight for water, and that's probably not what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make sure that wherever I'm going to either has a water source I can collect from, where I can fill from. Even campsites, and we live in modern times. Most campsites have some type of a water hookup or water nearby in a bathroom or something like that. So you're not always kind of out in the bush, so to speak, when you're out camping. You're probably pretty near to different things like that too. But when it comes to actually being away from a water source, that's really what we're talking about today. So let me kind of pull this back in here. So the primary way to treat water is to boil it. That is the 100% cure-all, catch-all way to treat water, is to boil it. You're going to get rid of bacteria. You're going to get rid of there's 3 things. There's protozoa, there's bacteria, and there's also viruses. I'm pretty sure those are the 3. So by boiling, you're going to cure all 3 of those. Most mechanical filtration, so pumps, things that have cartridges, filters, things like that, true filters for water filtration are mechanical, and they're only going to treat bacteria and they're going to treat protozoa. You're going to be left kind of fighting virus stuff because virus needs chemical filtration or boiling water to fix. So you really don't have to worry about viruses all that much here in the U.S. That's more kind of an overseas, down south, up north. Well, I don't know. Canada, I'm sure you have viruses. But anyway, that's something you need chemical filtration for. And to do that, you would use kind of a water purification tablet like these. You would use water purification drops, something along those lines, or boiling water. So The other method of mechanical filtration is like a filter, and I normally have a different filter, but I don't have it now. But there's a Cat9 filter I have that's, you know, just a kind of traditional pump filter, so it goes into the water source. The other end goes into your water bottle, and you're pumping water from a source. One thing to keep in mind when you're gathering water is that you always want to try to gather water near a running water source, meaning a stream that's flowing, not necessarily stagnant water. So if you have your choice of putting the pump to collect from, or even just to collect in a cup or something, you always want to collect from a running, moving water source rather than a stagnant water source. You're always going to come out with a better starting product when you're doing that. So the levels of water are really going to depend on where you're at, you know, what you're collecting from. You may not have a choice in the matter of you know, collecting from a running water source. And I know that sounds confusing, not like running water as in like turn on a handle and it runs, but an actual moving water source, I should say. You're not always going to have that opportunity. You may have to collect from someplace that's stagnant. I don't like to do that if I can avoid it. That's just kind of my rule of thumb when I'm out in the outdoors. I'd rather search for that moving water source. So what I like to do when I'm out, it really depends on the size of the group I'm with and whether or not I'm going to be responsible for water for a group or whether I'm going to be responsible for water individually. So one, like I said, always try to carry water. But two, if I'm with a group in a larger setting, I will use something like this. This is a thing called a Gravity Works filter, and I love this thing. It's made by Platypus, and basically you have a dirty reservoir and a clean reservoir. So this one says clean on it, this one says dirty on it. So this is the bag that you would collect from. So I'd go to my dirty water source, I'd open this up, I'd scoop water into this bag, and then I would hang it in a tree branch. Then I'd hook up my filter to this, and the water would basically gravity feed through this filter system into my clean water source bag. So that's how this system would work. And once I collect everything into the clean water reservoir, it is treated mechanically at this point. So that means that it's not treated for virus. And if the water source is good enough and I trust it enough, I'm probably just going to leave it be at that, and I'm not going to treat it anymore. But if I really wanted to knock out any virus opportunities that the water had, I would drop in one of these water purification tablets, or I would treat it with these Aquamira drops. So the difference being in these products is that the water purification tablets take about 4 hours to work. And that's a long time if you've collected water. Whereas the drops are pretty instantaneous. It's like 30 minutes for a liter or a quart of water. So 15 to 30 minutes actually. It can actually be less than that. It depends on the water source, meaning if it's super dirty, wait 30 minutes. If it's roughly a clean water source to begin with, 15 is probably going to be good. And I prefer the drops over the tablets, but the tablets are great for survival kits and things like that. That's why we include them in our little ITS mini survival kits, because of the size. So 4 hours is better than no purification whatsoever when you're limited by, you know, size and weight constraints and things like that. So they're good. And these are chlorine dioxide is what they call these tabs. So I have a little rundown here that I wanted to go over. So when I was talking about the three types, you got protozoa, you got bacteria, and you've got viruses. So protozoa include Giardia, I don't know however you pronounce that, Cryptosporidium, and then bacteria includes E. coli and dysentery, and then viruses are like hepatitis A and rotavirus. So those are just some examples of what those constitute. If you've heard like, well, it treats for Cryptosporidia, well, it treats for protozoa. That's kind of the all-encompassing thing for that. So that's kind of the gist of different water purification methods. And then I want to kind of go through some containers and things like that and some other accessories that kind of go along with that. Again, for the weight size ratio, you really can't beat this Gravity Works filter. I've used this quite a bit when I'm with scout groups and things like that. Whereas where I don't know how well they're going to bring their own purification methods, I'd rather take something like this and just say, hey guys, I got it, water's on me, and I'll collect it and treat it and be done with it. because the problem with a lot of those pumps is that if you don't take care of them, if you don't replace the filters, and you don't know the quality of the care that's gone into taking care of that water filter, you could be introducing bacteria and other things into that water source just based on using that pump that hasn't been properly taken care of. So that's always a consideration too. I'm kind of anal retentive when it comes to my water and not wanting to get sick. So I always typically have a Jetboil with me whenever I'm camping or anything like that, and I'll use it for a lot of things. I'll use it to make coffee in, I'll use it to heat up my meals in if I have to, but primarily I'm boiling water in it to, you know, reconstitute a meal that's dehydrated or whatever. But then also it's great to have an emergency purpose if I had to boil water for something like purification. Hopefully I would never have to. I'd rather treat it in, you know, in different areas or different things like this. And then I always have a Nalgene with me too. And what a Nalgene is great for is treating the water. So if you're boiling it, you need something to put it in after you boil it. If you're treating it, you know, chemically or mechanically, you need something to put it in to treat it, and a Nalgene is great for that. So typically I always try to carry 2 Nalgenes, hence the whole 64 ounces I talked about in the beginning. That way I have a spare Nalgene to treat with and one to drink out of, you know, something like that. It's always a good idea too, just a little tip, when you're treating water in a Nalgene, you always want to invert it, undo the cap, and let a little bit of water seep into the cap area too, and then close it again. You know, meaning once you put the treatment into the water, you want to do that so that it's treating the threads of the lid too whenever you tighten it back down, because that's a place where bacteria and other crap can hide too, so something to consider. And then as far as treatment containers go, that's why even in this little mini survival kit, we include a little bag like this, which is actually a pretty substantial bag. It's, you know, a liter-sized bag in something very small and compact that's pocket-sized, because you can treat water within this bag. So we include, you know, the actual water purification tabs as well as a bag to treat it in, which you really need to have both of those to do a good job, obviously, because then you'll be stuck going, okay, well, I got water purification tabs, what do I put it in? So that's kind of hence why we include one of those too. And then another thing I've been doing for a while when I got really into the lightweight backpacking thing is I read an article in a book called Backpacking Light, I think it was called, but it advocated basically repurposing the Aquamira drops, which again is a faster treatment method, into different size containers. So instead of having to carry these 2 big containers as well as this, which is kind of your pre-mix, so basically you mix the drops in this little thing, and then you let this little thing sit for about 5 minutes, and then you dump it into your water source, and that's your chemical filtration. You know, but instead of having to carry this, which isn't really all that big in itself, you can actually minimize that footprint by repurposing them into smaller bottles. And then this is a little bottle to put pre-mixed stuff in. So meaning you would take the drops, put them into the premix, and then this little bottle is all you have to keep in your pocket. And then as you collect water along the trail, you can just treat it right out of this thing and not have to wait the 5 minutes that it takes on top of the 15 to 30 to treat to mix your stuff. So little tip when it comes to that. I really don't think this is too bad though when it comes to weight. If you're an ultralight backpacker, you're cringing and thinking, oh my God, it's so heavy. But really, if you can get away with saving weight wherever you can, why not? You know, we've talked a lot about saving weight on gear tasting, so it kind of fits. The other thing too is you can always boil water in like a canteen cup like this, but I really can't stand these old canteen cups. Not only do they clatter around and make noise in your bag, but they're just not all that cool anymore. You know, you can boil water over a stove with them, but in my opinion, Jetboils are so ubiquitous now, there's no reason not to have one and to be able to boil water in something like this than even having to, start a fire, have an open flame, put this over it, boil water. It's just a pain in the butt in my opinion. I'd rather carry a fuel canister and a Jetboil and just be done with it. The other thing that I have kind of in my larger level survival kit, if you will, and I've kind of gone over that before, but I have this Snow Peak set. I just wanted to show you that. So this is, I think it's a mini titanium solo cook set or something like that. But then I have a little stove in here So this is kind of my way of carrying what's in a Jetboil without carrying a Jetboil, I guess. I don't know why I really don't have a second Jetboil to keep in there, but this is what I have. So I have a little Snow Peak stove like this, and then I have, you know, the canister, so this goes on the canister, and then this little cup goes on top of there, and I can boil water that way or heat up food or whatever. So I like this set because I can carry two fuel canisters inside of this thing. It's got a secondary cup to drink out of and stuff like that goes on the bottom, and then it's got a little lid to basically retain heat inside there while I'm heating things up. So I like it because it's compact. It doesn't weigh a whole lot in itself for all this combined. So that's kind of my I guess method for carrying something like that with me if I'm grabbing a bag for an emergency purpose. So hopefully that kind of wraps up the water purification. Hopefully you learned something about it. I've always been really into that. It's always been something I've been interested in because I never like to take the chance of getting sick when I'm in the outdoors and I need water. So hopefully this has given you a few different options to think about. All right, welcome to Questions Over Coffee. First question comes from Piotr on Twitter. Piotr? I don't know how to pronounce that. Maybe someone can correct me. I'm sure they will. I don't know whether you've done it or not on gear tasting, but I would love to hear about tactical sunglass options. So, my favorite pair of tactical sunglasses happens to be these blue blockers with the backup iron sight. And because you just never know when your optics are going to go down, you may need a backup iron sight. Plus, you know, you can just pull them down like this and range targets. It's great. The best part of all is they're not that noticeable on your face. I kid. But so seriously, I really do like these 3M sunglasses. I would call them sunglasses, I guess. Take off crappy zip ties. But these were given to me at SHOT Show this last year, I believe. I got like a 3-pack of both some tinted ones, the clear ones I have in my truck, and then there's the, I don't know, amber lenses or whatever you call these. But I really like these because they're super lightweight. They're very, very thin profile that flexes on the side that I really like. Plus, they have kind of a rubberized coating on the over the ear pieces, and they stay on my face really well. If I'm wearing Ear Pro, which is a common thing, they don't interfere or press into the side of my head with Ear Pro on, and that's a huge thing for me when I'm out on the range. I typically don't wear, and I'm guilty of this, I've talked about it before in gear tasting, but there's a lot of times I'll go out shooting and I like wearing gaiters. They're some of my favorite sunglasses. This is actually a backup pair I have. I usually wear the Magnum style gaiters, and this is a thinner profile. I can't remember what this style is called, but this is kind of my backup pair if I lose them. But I like these as well for that same reason. They're metal. They hold up really well. I do have a problem with the lenses scratching from time to time with the pairs of gaiters I've had over the years, but I always keep coming back to these, and one of the reasons is because of that thin profile of the gaiters. They're comfortable in my face. I can run with them too, and that's a big thing for me when I'm out exercising and stuff like that. I like gaiters for that purpose, and you would think a pair of metal sunglasses would rust out and stuff like that, and the only problem I've ever had with them is around the nose piece on gaiters. I'll get like rusting of those little screws that hold in the nose piece. But they actually sell replacement kits for that, so it's really not that big of a deal. But I like these a lot for outdoor activities, and then one being because they have a little rubberized coating on the inside of that too, very much like these 3M glasses do. So I go between these and the 3M glasses depending on what I'm doing. If I really care about eye protection, which I really should all the time, I'm super guilty of that, I'll typically grab a pair of these before I go to the range or something like that. And that's why the clear pairs in my truck, I go shooting from time to time, so I keep those in there for that purpose. But I really like these for just kind of an all-around thing. For shooting, I like these 3M. I really wish I knew what these are called. I'll try to put it in the description for the YouTube video. It says SF400 series, so I'm not sure if that's the actual nomenclature of these, but they came in a 3-pack again, like the tinted, the amber, and the clear. So they're made by 3M. I really like them. Super lightweight. I actually sat on a pair one time, and you know, it didn't even break them, which I really like. I mean, I'm crushing these right now, and they pop back to normal. So I think they're really good. Obviously I got them for free at SHOT Show, but that's not the reason I'm saying they're good. I really do like them. So tactical wise, I have a hard time labeling eyewear as tactical, so that was kind of my joke at your question. Hopefully you guys liked it. Okay, next question on Questions Over Coffee comes from Mike K on Facebook. I know you guys have covered first aid many times, but what's a good first aid kit for the home? I'm looking for a complete kit to cover normal things plus more serious injuries. We have firearms in the home as well, so having bleeder blowout options is a must on top of normal emergencies. So you're really asking two things, because in my opinion, first aid and trauma are two completely separate categories in terms of treatment. I consider first aid to be stuff like minor cuts, bruises, scrapes, bumps, those kind of ailments that typically happen. You may need an aspirin or a Motrin or something like that to treat. You may have to put a Band-Aid on somebody. You may have to cover up a scratch or a cut. Maybe it's a laceration that's bleeding heavily, and some direct pressure will fix that. So I'm going to tout our product only because it's based on actual usage. I developed the Boo Boo Kit and the Boo Boo Kit Plus that we carry at ITS from my experience over 10 plus years of carrying first aid equipment. I've done quite a bit in terms of that. I've done some first aid classes. I've done some stuff with the Boy Scouts. So this kind of synopsis of this kit was based on what I felt. And also I researched that through a ton of professionals that I know in the medical field too. So there's a lot that's gone into the development of this kit, so that's why I'm going to talk about it today. I'm sure there's plenty of first aid kit options out there, but I've never seen a more comprehensive kit for the price point that we come in at for this kit. So the Boo Boo Kit Plus, which I'm about to talk about, is $50. We also have the Boo Boo Kit, which is this small unit, which is inside the Boo Boo Kit Plus. This is $20. And in my opinion, for $20, the amount of work that it goes into assembling all these little items that go into these kits, you're not going to be able to put that together yourself. It's a volume cost thing, and we can do it really good and offer it for a good price point. And it's assembled all here in the U.S. While every ingredient in these kits isn't necessarily made in the U.S., it is assembled by our loving hands here at ITS headquarters. So there's my pitch on the product. And I'm not just pitching it because it's our product, it's because there's a lot of really good stuff in it. So on the contents list from the Boo Boo Kit Plus, we've got let me just talk about it rather than read you off a contents list. So the Boo Boo Kit Plus has the stuff that you're talking about to treat more kind of borderline trauma stuff. So in my opinion, trauma is like the 3 leading preventable causes of death. We've talked about our ETA trauma kits on Gear Tasting before. You've got combat gauze, you've got an Israeli dressing, you've got an MPA, you've got halo chest seals, you've got things to treat traumatic injury and the 3 leading causes of preventable death, which coincidentally make up the acronym for ETA kit, which is extremity hemorrhage, tensor pneumothorax, and airway obstruction. That is dedicated trauma. That's not really what this kit is treating, but it does border on that because in the Plus we've got a 4x4 dressing that's a quick clot gauze. So if you know anything about quick clot, it's impregnated with kaolin, it's got a clotting agent, which is kaolin, and it stops severe bleeding. So in a dressing form like this, you could technically pack this a little bit inside of a wound, but it's more for exterior stuff. So if you've got a large cut or laceration that won't stop bleeding and direct pressure isn't doing the trick, you've at least got something to go to with that. That being said, kind of moving down the chain in the Plus side of things, we also included a cold compress. You've got a pair of gloves, so dealing with bloodborne pathogens, it's always good to protect yourself. You've got a couple of 4x4 gauze pads. You've got a couple of wet ones for basically antibacterial wipes if you need them. You've got a syringe, which is not meant to administer drugs or anything like that. It's a 10 milliliter syringe for irrigating wounds. So if you've got something that gets dirty and scraped up, you can squeeze water that you put into one of these through that. You've also got a face shield if you had to deal with a CPR incident. You've got some Durapore 3M medical tape if you had to tape something down. If you need to secure a 4x4 for pressure, you can do that with this tape. And then there's also a pair of small metal tweezers in here, which are really good quality tweezers. They're metal, they're not plastic, for getting out splinters or ticks or anything like that if you're outside. So that's kind of the upper echelon of stuff in the Plus side. And then included in the Plus is also the regular Boo-Boo kit, which you can buy separately. And in the Boo-Boo kit, what you've got is you've got a triangular bandage, which is great for a ton of different things. You can Google triangular bandage and probably learn 101 uses for a triangular bandage. There's a lot of them. But most importantly, you can use that as a sling. You can use it to provide, pressure, direct pressure to stop bleeding. There's also a couple of 2x2 gauze pads. So in the bigger kit, you get 4x4s. In the smaller kit, you get 2x2s. And then you've got BandAids, which, honestly, in my opinion, you're more likely to need a BandAid than a pack of combat gauze or even, a quick clot dressing. So we use really good BandAids, and I'm not just saying that because of the BandAids we put in here. It's that I hate crappy BandAids. I hate them with a passion. I hate wearing BandAids, period, but sometimes I have to do it. We all have to wear BandAids. I thought about including some Hello Kitty BandAids, but I thought, some regular BandAids that are just really good work well too. So these are really good quality BandAids, and they're going to last even when you wash your hands, and that's a big thing for me. I hate putting on a BandAid. I'm always screwing my hands up doing something, and I always wash my hands and the BandAid falls apart. And anyway, good BandAids in the kit. And then you've got some moleskin in one of these smaller compartments, smaller packages. So we include a strip of moleskin for blisters and things like that. We've got some lip guard, which is basically, a chapstick-like alternative if you need to put something on your lips if you're out in the sun. Chapped lips suck. Here's something to treat it, right? Also got some burn gel for treating burns. In our next pack, we've got Steri strips. Steri strips are kind of a miracle if you've ever used them. They're basically like a butterfly bandage on steroids. So you've got 3 of them in each package. You can cut them down if you need smaller ones, but they're great. They're basically kind of a temporary suture-like bandage. So you can stretch them across a cut and it'll basically close that up while it heals. You can put some tape over that if you need to secure it even further, something like that. So Steri strips are great. I also included some triple antibiotic. There's 2 packages of that. Then we've got some iodine pads, as well as some alcohol pads, which coincidentally, alcohol pads are a great fire starter, just FYI. And then some sting relief pads for bug bites and things like that. And then we've also got some meds, which is one of the big things that most first aid kits are lacking. We've got some Diamode, which is basically kind of an anti-diarrheal. We've got 2 packs of that. We've got 2 packs of aspirin, 2 packs of Difen, which Difen is like a Benadryl, like an antihistamine. Then we've got some Sufedrin, ibuprofen. We've got some electrolytes, and we've got some Apanal, which is basically like acetaminophen. So there's a pretty good range, 2 packs of each when it comes to the meds that are in this thing. Again, all this stuff is pretty full featured for a first aid kit. Most first aid kits that you buy in the store, they might have, some glorified first aid components, but I guarantee you there's not been as much thought process behind it as what's gone into these kits. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what I would recommend. Again, I take not only depending on the space I have, I always have a Boo-Boo Kit Plus or a Boo-Boo Kit with me. In the bag that I carry to and from work every day, there's not only an EDC trauma kit that we make in there, but there's also a Boo-Boo Kit Plus inside my bag, and that goes with me everywhere. I'm always needing that for something. I'm always there to render aid if I have to, so that's kind of why I like being prepared in that light. Hopefully that helps. All right, so that last bit made me sound like a superhero, like first aid man. I'm always there to render aid. Anyway, next question, what kind of cigars do you like? This is from Adam D on YouTube. I've talked about cigars, I guess, in past episodes. I don't know. But I do like smoking cigars. I don't smoke them all the time, but when I do, actually, I like to enjoy them. Bonnie buys the shit coffee. I buy the good cigars, right? I like Padrones a lot. That's a Dominican cigar, so I'll typically pick those up if I'm walking into a humidor at some cigar shop or something like that. Lately, I've been finding some Cuban cigars, and I really like the Upmans. They're Petite Coronas. If you can find them, they're really short cigars. I don't like sitting there for 2 hours smoking the cigar, so I kind of like the short, just kind of enjoy it while I'm cooking dinner or grilling or something like that. The Petite Coronas are great cigars, but they're Upmans, they're Cuban. And then everybody likes, when it comes to Cuban cigars, everybody's like, I love Cohibas, and I like Cohibas. They're good cigars, but they're a little spicy for me. I kind of like a more mild cigar, so that's why the Upmans kind of are my preference when it comes to Cubans. And then also, along with the Padrones, I like Fuentes a lot for Dominican stuff. Like the Opus X cigars are phenomenal if you can find them. They're a little on the pricey side, but totally worth it in my opinion. All right, guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting. As always, I use the pound tag Gear Tasting on the social media network if you have questions, and we'll get them answered here on Gear Tasting. If you like what we're doing, check out some stuff in the store. I know I mentioned the Boo Kit. We've got plenty of those in stock in the store if you're interested in an awesome first aid kit. So check them out. Again, we've also got our membership stuff going, so if you're enjoying what we're doing, please consider joining as a crew leader. We've got details below in the description, and it will allow us to give you back something in return for your hard-earned dollars supporting our membership. Thanks for watching.